Rabbi Yochanan. Here we go. We are re-entering the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. We are going to. I'm sharing my screen. Just give me a moment. And we're going to finish this story today. We'll do a little bit of a backing up. We'll read about the wedding. And I know sometimes I can't keep track of who is here which weeks. So in case there are some who are here who weren't here last week, this is part 2. This is the second installment. We literally both admitted that person at the same time. I don't know who actually did it, but they show up here.
Did they show up twice if you both admit?
They show up twice. Oh. They clone. I got it.
You got it?
I got
Okay.
it. Yeah. That's a raise.
I'm not doing anything to
You can't help yourself. You can't. He's such a doer, Lou. Such a
Well, so are you.
yeah, we're both. Yeah, it's true.
It's crooked. Can you straighten up the page?
Unfortunately, it means that's how it was photocopied. So the next page is straighter. Does that give you some hope? I'm sorry.
I got to see if I can move the faces because they're over on the page.
Yeah, you should be able to change your view, your Zoom view. Just click on show active speaker or click on get out of the gallery view. You should be able to do it on your Zoom. I can't do it for you, Sandra. That's our limit here. Okay. So Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, we've been talking about this relationship. We've been talking about the relationship between the brother and sister, Rabbi Yochanan and his sister. We're here at the wedding. She's really pretty heavy-handed with the hello, come on in. The contrast, the compare and the contrast of the Yochanan family and the Reish Lakish bandits. So what I mean by that is, in this paragraph, which is, I'm sorry, we're on page 19. No, we're not. No, we're on page 20. Thanks, Simone. Happy belated birthday.
That is from the book.
Page 22. Page 22, if you're in your handouts. In the middle of the wedding, where the image is, Eileen, thank you for that comment. So maybe you're having the same issue, that the Shar email went to the junk folder.
Okay, I'll check again.
And she never had that issue before.
Because I clean my junk every week and I
clean your
check
junk?
it. I erase it, I get it
Good
off.
for you.
And
Yeah.
I never saw anything from the Monday thing. So,
So
but
I don't know. And
it's
Eileen, to your point, I don't know. The Shar emails come from different Shar email addresses for different things. So.
I will definitely check that.
So anyway, the new couple, longing in their eyes, their long arms, one dark and one light. That's what I wanted to say. That we're in this wedding of two worlds, of Reish Lakish, the dark, and of Rabbi Yochanan's sister, the light, of the physical and the spiritual. And the sages stood in a circle around them. And everything passed like in a dream. So we're going to go from the wedding now. And
I didn't dress up.
you didn't dress. The wedding's over, don't worry.
It's
I don't know what to do anymore.
it's in my regular image,
Okay.
just to let you know, regular.
It got into your regular email. There's so many conversations happening at the same time right now. Can I just say there's a Zoom conversation, there's a tech email conversation. There's a conversation about Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish and his sister. Okay, at night. So we're going to finish the story today. Next week, we're going to have a new story. That's really all I wanted to say. At night, when the guests had gone home, the galloping of horses could be heard in the distance. In the morning, and here's the sound effects. Reish Lakish found a bundle of expensive spices from Lebanon resting on his windowsill. left by a band of robbers that had come and gone under cover of darkness. They still think of him. They're leaving him a wedding present.
Right.
So I want to say that even when Rabbi Yochanan is reminding him of his past, even his past is reminding him of his past.
Mhm, mhm,
His robber friends
mhm.
left him spices, a very appropriate gift.
Mhm.
Perhaps it was a peace offering a way of partaking in Reish Lakish's joy, or perhaps it was a beckoning call from the savage world beyond the Jordan, come back. They still want him back, they miss him. All right, so this is really where we left off. He's so entrenched in his new world that he's now married into it. And yet his old world is still, I don't know if it's part of who he is, but they are still part of, he is still part of who they are.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're at the very bottom of the page now, of page 22, if you're following along. As was customary, the engaged girl would remain in her parents' home for another year until the wedding. I mentioned that last week. And if people are curious, we can go more into the betrothal ceremonies and the wedding ceremonies, maybe another time if we have time. During the sweet period that followed, Reish Lakish studied hard. So he's betrothed, but he's not yet married. So he's like getting ready to become a good scholarly groom. He devoted himself to the rabbi who had taken him apart in the river and then put him back together as a new man, built from layers of Torah and Mishnah. Is it giving Rabbi Yochanan a little too much credit?
Yeah.
That he took him apart in the river? I think she's making the most that she can of that river encounter as a conversion moment.
Mhm.
Sometimes he worried, is it possible to be remade?
Mm.
What happened to all the instincts of the robber? Now Reish Lakish was a man according to the standards of the yeshiva world. He was even given a new name, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. It seemed as if he had been born among the sages, as if he had studied among the children of Beit Rabban. At times he could forget his body entirely. What would it mean to be born among the sages? To be all mind and no body.
Mm.
So he's divorcing himself from his body to be married to the Torah and
Yeah.
to this new world of the yeshiva.
Rachel, can I just say, we are a sum of our history psychologically. You can't, he's a better man because of who he was before. So to erase your history.
Well, and that's why he's going to be able to answer that halakhic question about the sword and the sickle and
I
whatever.
know, but I'm just
right?
saying,
It
her
proves that, but-
implication is he's remade, he was taken apart and rebuilt.
Yeah.
That's a loss.
So
in my
I
mind.
think that
That's a
is one of
loss.
the tensions in this story. Can you be new? He's asking himself, and maybe
Well,
he's
you can be an
overcompensating.
improved version of yourself, but you will always have.
So
your
this is a
history.
question that people who convert often are faced with. The question of, look, you get a new name. You even say Ben or Bat Avraham v'Sarah. You don't use your biological parents' names.
You're dead naming.
If you're called to the Torah or what?
You're dead naming them if you use their old Christian names.
Right, exactly.
What?
Yes.
You're dead. Naming?
Well, that's like
oh
the
gosh,
it's
it's
like
another
this
world
gender-
of,
it's like a
right,
gender thing.
transgender.
Oh,
You're not
okay.
supposed to call them their own name Jack if they're now
Oh.
Jill. And also, you're not supposed to remind them of their past because it could be hurtful. On the other hand, just let's play the other side of it. I actually had a dear friend, my college roommate, who went through a conversion process, and people would ask her, and she became very religious, a wig wearing
You mean she was
Orthodox
Christian before?
Jew.
No, she was a Jew.
She was not
She was a secular Jew.
practicing,
Oh, okay.
and
secular.
she converted. She immersed in the mikvah and converted. It's a longer story. Her father was Jewish, but her mother certainly was not. She wasn't really
Oh.
raised. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, it does matter, just irrelevant to this point I'm
Yes.
making. People would ask her a lot. She had a lot of tattoos, still does have a lot of
Okay.
tattoos.
Yeah.
People would ask her, well, why don't you remove your tattoos? That's against halacha to be tattooed. And she says, that is part of who I am, and part of who I was is part of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of that. It all is a conglomerate of my experience. It's who I,
Absolutely.
and I'm here today in the way that I am because of who I was. And she never wanted to remove her tattoos. And even if, she's immersing in the mikveh and the mikveh lady sees her with all these tattoos, okay. It's
But
who I
what triggered her
was, it's
to
who I am.
convert?
What's that?
What triggered her to convert?
It's a long journey.
Anyway, the comment was that you can't leave
But
your past, you are a sum of your parts.
Exactly. So his body is still, but maybe he's trying to separate himself from his past. This is a question, I think that's very live in this text. So Reish Lakish's study with the head of the academy became the talk of the town. We're at the top, the first paragraph at the top of page 23. People gossiped in the marketplace about the new student, about his astonishing skills as a scholar, his ability to hold 24 stages of an argument in his mind all at once. Remember, that
24 is a
came
significant
from the
slide.
text of
The
the
arguments,
story
yes.
in the Talmud. That I argued 24 things, Reish Lakish would argue 24 things back. So she's weaving that in here to her story. And to remember contradicting texts with perfect clarity. He can hold contradictions in text.
Yeah.
He can't seem to hold contradictions in his life.
Hmm.
Oh,
Can't reconcile the mind and the body. He's
you should
removing
speak to
himself
him
from the
about
body
that.
in order to develop his mind. They whispered with wide eyes that in his youth, Reish Lakish had been a gladiator, but now his body is weak. Their tall tales went. It's a tall tale. We don't know if it's true. He cannot carry books. He can barely get up from his seat. Okay, come on. That's a little bit of a tall tale.
Unlike
But the point of it is the same, that
Literary
it's the mind and
license.
not the body. Rabbi Yochanan shone even more in Reish Lakish's presence. Their disputes about matters of Torah served as the framework for all the learning that took place. Before each weekly lecture, the students would go over Rabbi Yochanan's previous class with Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, they enjoyed taking part in the excitement that unfolded before them each day. 12 months later, they made a party. The bride was brought to the groom's home. So that basically was the wedding. Accompanied by an entourage of Torah scholars, Ben Lakish came out to bring his wife home. The same radiance for which her brother was known shone in her as well. A band of loveliness and grace was woven into her thick hair, with flowers tucked between the strands. Her dress at once touched and did not touch her full body. She was almost barefoot in the delicate sandals that adorned her feet. It's like this image of like she's floating. She's an angel. She doesn't have a body.
Ethereal.
With neither eye makeup nor blush nor braids in her hair, she radiates grace, they sang to her, which by the way, of course, she had eye makeup and blush and braids and beautiful gown, but that's not what made her beautiful. The groom, who was new to such rituals, thought that they had written these words especially for his brides. So he's still a little bit ignorant. All of Tiberias was swept up in the excitement. The bride and groom were accompanied to their home, and Rabbi Yochanan stood outside as was customary. No one noticed when, after just a few minutes, the door was opened and warm eyes invited him inside. The three of them sat on the pillows and ate with their fingers, laughing together. Two grooms and a bride.
Boy,
I mean, this is all her, right? This is Ruth banging us over the head with the romance between these men and the romance with the sister. And it, I mean,
Threesome, I mean,
how do you feel about it? It's a
I
little
don't,
too
I,
much.
yeah, it's a little.
Well, the threesome
A
isn't
bit
eating.
weird.
I don't think it's implying a real
Mhm.
threesome. I don't think it's
I don't
implying any
no.
impropriety, but it's implying that there is something
Mentally, it's
that is
certainly-
bonding the
Yeah.
three of them together.
Yeah.
Maybe not in body, but in spirit.
Mhm.
And in eating with their fingers seems to be an intimacy. And by the way, eating and sexuality can often be symbols
I suppose,
of
yeah.
one another. So you can make of this whatever you choose. I
Well,
don't know
now we
what you think.
understand
she
why he
chose.
got spices as a gift.
Spice it
Definitely
up.
spice it up with this relationship.
It's a choice this author's made.
Yeah.
Can I ask a?
And
public question?
and that choice based on, by the way, she has to have it anchored in the Talmud text, and so she's found evidence enough. You're not so into it. Barbara's not.
No,
into it.
no, I think there's evidence to suggest, but this is a pretty, their actual wedding night. I mean,
Yeah, it's a little much.
it's very heavy-handed, yes.
I'm stuck a little on, what do you think that Ruth is
Mhm.
making of this forgetting your body part? Because I find that it's troubling.
Yeah, yeah.
That the people you think would most appreciate the miracle of the body, how it works. We pray every day that the body worked.
That's the irony.
And when I remember being so surprised when I was in Israel, around a lot of yeshiva kids smoking.
Oh, yeah.
I
Well, that's
couldn't get
terrible.
over it. The
Well,
body.
never
Is the
mistake,
body holy?
never mistake Judaism for Jews.
Yeah, exactly.
And-
Just
and
And look at all the
because
fat, look at all the fat overeating Jews. I mean, you know.
But
It's-
what is
it's
she
not living up to a
making
Jewish
of
ideal,
this
I
when
think.
she says he's getting weaker before
Yeah,
he
yeah.
can't pick up his
Yeah.
books, he can't.
Well, remember, that's the tall tales that they're telling about him.
Right.
The tall
Yeah.
tales.
Not necessarily the truth.
In the tales, it said that he got
They're
sick.
saying,
so that's
oh,
a
he's-
part of the
He's so
sickness.
weak, he can't pick up his book.
So it.
But I think she is setting up this tension between the yeshiva and the outside
Yes.
physical world.
That's.
And it is true, not only in yeshiva world, but in secular academics. You're stuck in the library or you're stuck in the ivory tower.
Right.
You're so out of touch with, like, get up and take a walk.
Yeah.
Or take care of yourself or appreciate the outdoors, appreciate the body. The mind divorced from the body, neck up, neck down,
can-
are often bifurcated. And in this world, they're being set up as representative of the Rabbi Yochanan versus Reish Lakish. But remember, Rabbi Yochanan is very beautiful,
Mhm.
but his beauty is like a pale, not a rustic beauty,
Right.
a pale, delicate beauty.
Right.
But I
Mm.
think forgetting the body is just to say that you're not distracted by your corporal needs. You can be really focused on
Mhm.
total study.
And yet,
It's not
in
nice.
order to understand these halachic discussions and debates, you need to know what the heck a sickle is. And they don't. They're having debates about oxen and they don't keep oxen.
Hmm.
Sorry. I thought I had put my do not disturb of that. Okay. So it is a problem. It's not something to aspire to. But I think, yeah, these are different aspects of the self and different aspects of
Mhm.
society that we wish they could work together, but they don't always. In the study house, life went on as usual. I'm at the top of page 24. After Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish married into the family of the head of the academy. That's his position now. He's married in. Ben Lakish's body filled out a little.
Mhm.
His beard grew longer, and he became with time less wild and more domesticated, as if he's an animal.
Yeah.
Domesticated animal. Rabbi Yochanan treated him with respect, and yet he was still the teacher and Ben Lakish was still the student. The hierarchy of roles in the study house was diffuse, but jealously guarded. Ben Lakish would prepare the other students before Rabbi Yochanan's class. He would listen carefully to everything they said. The students would still rise when Rabbi Yochanan entered the room. He's clearly still at the top of the pyramid. Years passed. Someone had asked this, and I forgot that it was even in this story, but I also looked it up. Rabbi Yochanan did get married, and he had, unfortunately, many tragedies, and it said he lost 10 sons. That's going to show up right now in this story. So things are about to turn. Rabbi Yochanan also got married to a woman from a good family, who of course is unnamed and insignificant. significance
Mhm.
other than the fact that she's the wife of Rabbi Yochanan and she has good pedigree.
Mhm.
But their sons were sickly and died young. It's like what happens when you have too much inbreeding. You don't get any gladiators in the mix, right? You don't get any converts into the Jewish genome. It's really not good. You get a lot of Jewish genetic
You
disease.
get a lot of pianists
We-
with 6 fingers on.
Oh, thanks, Mary. But I think there is, there's like it doesn't say that there's an inbreeding here,
No,
but it happened in the monarchies, right? They all wanted
Oh,
to
yeah.
marry themselves
Yeah,
and it
Keep the
wasn't
line pure.
right. It was not good. So yet again, we have to acknowledge why we need our converts for the good of the Jewish people in so many ways. None of their children grew old enough to learn even a single word of Torah. It's tragic. Rabbi Yochanan's pain at the loss of his sons was apparent in every move he made. His arm was still radiant, but his face was dark. And that's not a good dark. That's not like a rugged, rustic dark because he's been in the sun dark. So I think it's also she's playing with darkness and light now in a different way.
What
He
does it mean
rarely
his arm was
smiled.
radiant? What does that mean? His arm was radiant? Maybe I missed something earlier.
It's a good point. So yeah, earlier she mentioned the arm as a place where his beauty was shining. Twice she mentioned the arm. Once was when they were in the Jordan River bathing and Reish Lakish saw the brightness of his arm, the whiteness, mistaking it for a woman. And then again at the wedding where we see the arm of the bride and the arm of the groom, light and dark. So I think she's trying to say he's still Rabbi Yochanan, but he is a pale version of himself, a lesser version of himself.
That's good.
I'm not sure why the arm, because the tefillin are there.
Yeah.
I don't have a good, the heart near the heart, maybe.
It's interesting.
He rarely smiled. When Ben Lakish would confuse the letters Aleph and Ayin, he would grumble to himself, enough, Ben Lakish, enough. No, he's lost like that charm that he felt for his student is now, he's lost his patience. He lost his affability. He's lost his humor. He's lost his spark. It was rumored that everywhere Rabbi Yochanan went, he carried in the pocket of his cloak the tiny bone of his 10th son who died.
Oh,
Gruesome and also very, very, very sad. On one unusually cold morning, Rabbi Yochanan was not feeling well. He was trying to banish the thought that had recently burrowed itself in his mind. Reish Lakish no longer found favor in his eyes. When he entered the study house, the scholars were clustered around Reish Lakish. More robber stories, he forced himself to quit. And he's starting to get jealous. Ben Lakish is so affable, he thought. No one ever crowded around me like that. Rabbi Yochanan drew closer and heard Reish Lakish present a new interpretation of a familiar Mishnah. The students were absorbed in their learning, asking questions about Reish Lakish's teaching. They did not even notice that Rabbi Yochanan had entered the room. They neglected to rise in his honor. Rabbi Yochanan's anger flared.
What is?
Excuse me, during this,
affable is
Affable.
friendly and congenial.
Okay.
That people
Thank
like.
you.
during this time that he had 10 sons that died, didn't Reish Lakish have any? They didn't have
It's
children?
interesting, they don't mention the children of Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan's wife, but they clearly had children because when he dies, she's going to talk about the
That's true,
orphan.
but it's funny they don't mention.
So yeah, she doesn't bring that in. Yeah.
Why is
I was
Reish
also gonna say,
That would be a good reason for him to be resentful if he had healthy, if Reish Lakish had. healthy
yes,
children.
he had children and Yochanan
Annie had a
didn't. Yeah,
question.
I heard a voice in the, let me pause actually this share and ask about the Zoom room, our Zoom friends.
Why
Annie,
is
go ahead.
Reish Lakish misinterpreting the Aleph and the Ayin after all these years have passed? Is it symbolic of something?
Yeah.
Maybe he does it as a joke.
The question is, it's just hard maybe in the back of this room. Why would Reish Lakish, being such an incredible scholar, still mix up his Aleph and his Ayin after all these years? Why would he still be making innocent mistakes?
The-
Also, why would it matter if you mixed an Aleph and an Ayin?
Yeah.
It sounds the same. maybe when he's writing, his spelling still isn't there, even if his mind is sharp.
I
What
think
does
it's
it
just
even mean
showing
to
how,
mix an aleph and an ayin?
how picky Yohanan had become. That
Yeah.
even you're mixing up aleph and ayin, it could have been just his,
In speech, it wouldn't matter,
Projection.
but in writing, I
yeah,
guess.
it doesn't. No, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
picky, it's nitpicking as
Yeah.
opposed to.
But there's something in education that can lead to that too. Kids have certain things that they develop when they're young. And it's not always that they develop the right thing. Like someone doesn't know the difference when they get in the elevator, which one opens and which one closes, which is an algebraic thing of greater and less than. And if they go through all their life, every time they get in the elevator, they point to the wrong one and the door shuts when you're supposed to open. That's the kind of thing that could
So
happen.
interesting. Yeah, there are things that are embedded very, very young. Naomi's asking maybe if it would change the meaning of a word. I think it would just be misspelled, but I don't think you would think, I'm thinking of Aramaic words, they usually end with aleph if you put an ayin. I can't imagine it would. Yeah,
Rabbi Yochanan is just trying to find a reason to be upset with Rish Lakish, and he's
maybe.
finding the most minute thing to get at.
But I think her point here is he may have still, I think what Esther's saying is true. There are things that you learn as a young child that are really hard to learn, especially languages, very hard to learn as an older person. And so you're still going to mess up. I sometimes have a bat mitzvah student even who might have learned, and you learn it before you know how to read,
Yeah.
because they learned it at Akiva in
Mhm.
kindergarten or whatever. And they come to me and they're singing the wrong words, even though now they can read well,
Yeah.
but they're not even, you're
That's right.
habituated.
Right.
So,
Dyslexia sometimes does that.
sure. But I think
You know what? It's not terrible in
nitpicking
this
at
thing.
these little inborn mistakes that are because it's because of his late start.
Yeah.
Right? That
It's a
he
way
would
of
maybe
reminding him
mix
of
them
his
up.
past, which is actually.
Right, it
sin.
reminds him of his past. Right, and the comment about maybe having a learning disability, whether it's dyslexia or something else. I love how we can sit and diagnose Reish Lakish. Okay, I'm gonna start my speaker again
Really
and
not that bad.
not bad. Okay,
Near the-
so
There's a
near the
comment.
window.
what's the comment?
One's-
Oh, yes, Aleph and Ayin. That's true. Thank you. If you take them to mean the words themselves, Aleph is one. Ayin is related to Ein, Ayin, which means nothing, there isn't.
Hmm.
So it's like Yesh and Ayin, there is oneness of God or there isn't. So it could be a play on these letters themselves. That's thank you, Francis. It's very creative and I appreciate that. I don't know if that's what's intended. You can never know. Okay. Near the window, Reish Lakish returns to his seat to learn. Now here's the case, right, in this story. The sword, the knife, the hunting spear, the hand sickle, the harvesting sickle. At what stage are they regarded as completed? The sound of Reish Lakish's chanting annoys Rabbi Yochanan. You know, when you're in a fight with your friend or significant other, and the same thing that he said yesterday that was cute is now so irritating. As does his light lisp. Yeah, he doesn't even speak clearly because he's a gangster. Rabbi Yochanan calls out, when they're refined in the furnace, obviously. And Reish Lakish counters, when they are polished in water. Yet another disagreement between the two great scholars. It would have been just yet another disagreement any other day. They've been doing this for years. Rabbi Yochanan does not lift his eyes from Ben Lakish. He keeps his distance and remains cold, even as their dispute heats up. Ben Lakish looks at him, surprised. So this is that duel, right? Their usual creative banter has suddenly turned hostile, as if there has been a declaration of war. So you can say the same thing that you said last week, but in a different tone, and suddenly it's a war. A hush spreads over the study house, and the normal hum of learning gives way to a tense silence. Reish Lakish, confident of his position, cites several verses to prove his case. He links these verses masterfully, like a virtuoso performer. He's good. After all these years, what he's learned, he's made his own. He senses his teacher's anger and is about to retreat when he hears himself insisting one more when they are polished in water. So he thinks better of it and then says, no, I'm gonna stand my ground. In water, he thinks back to the Jordan. Right? We mentioned
Last
that.
week. I said this
Yes,
last week.
yes, exactly. Where he first met Rabbi Yochanan. I went in as one person and came out as another. Does Rabbi Yochanan not hear him? Does he not remember? He's trying to get back his old Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is quiet for a moment. He mumbles softly. A thief knows the tools of his trade. He does not even refute Reish Lakish's argument. Because that would be a sign of engaging with him. But instead, he's stonewalling, is dismissing him.
It's an ad
Um,
hominem. You don't, not supposed to do that in a
Mhm.
debate. An ad
Right.
hominem, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. It's not the rules of engagement. Reish Lakish tries to smile. His teacher has just called him a robber, a criminal, a thief who knows the tools of his trade. And yet it is a well-known principle that it is forbidden to remind someone of his sordid past after he has forsaken it. Reish Lakish feels stung, as if he has just been slapped on the cheek. His knees turn to water. The whole world seems suspended. Now, Reish Lakish aches for the knife that he abandoned on the bank of the Jordan, which means you can't really change someone. They're still going to confuse the Aleph and the Ayin. Maybe that's what that's about. And he still has that instinct of reaching to his gun, right? It was almost an extension of his arm. For a moment, he clenches his fists and then he relaxes them. He looks at his handsome teacher, who has suddenly been rendered ugly by his jealousy, but his heart is still in his master's thrall. What good did you do for me? Asks Ben Lakish quietly. The sages try to continue learning. It's like everyone looks away. There among the robbers, I was called master, and here too I am called master. What has changed? That's directly right from the Talmud story. I didn't do any good at all, answers Rabbi Yochanan. So that wasn't the answer in the text. It was, I brought you under the wings of the divine presence. But Rabbi Yochanan here, she makes him answer something. I don't know if it's something passive aggressive or just, again, not engaging. Reish Lakish's deception fuels his self-hatred. He puts his hand in the pocket of his cloak. Oh, that's an error.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
the bone was in.
Fingering the bone of his
Yohanan's.
dead son.
No, what she did is she should have said Yochanan,
Yeah.
but
Yochanan, he didn't do, yeah,
Yeah.
Reish Lakish's deception fuels Yochanan's self-hatred.
Exactly.
Yochanan
yes,
puts the
yeah,
same-
it's not good writing.
Probably,
Sorry, Ruth. We're
Yeah.
gonna edit you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably not important, but how can you have a bone of your son in your pocket?
yeah, you would have to bury fully. It's against Jewish law to keep
I
one
wondered that
bone
too.
out of the
Yeah.
burial.
Mhm.
He carries a little tiny, like you can imagine a little
Like a finger.
pinky bone.
Yeah,
or
But I don't
something.
understand the meaning.
Mm.
Strange.
Yeah.
it is weird.
It's a little spooky. It's like Rabbi Yochanan carries all this death around with him everywhere he goes now, because he's lost so many children. Rabbi Yochanan is unable to continue learning. Before noon, his spirit grows weak. A sense of solemnity and gloom overcomes him, and he closes himself off from the world. Reish Lakish is left by the window, palely loitering. Sense of distress
palely loitering.
and foreboding weighs on the study house like a heavy stone. Everyone knows that Reish Lakish will grow ill as a result of Rabbi Yochanan's weakening of spirit. So there's this cause and effect sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Metaphysical reality that they're all living in. Like, oh, everybody knows if Rabbi Yochanan is disturbed because of you, you're going to get sick.
Oh,
Some cosmic.
it's like an evil eye.
Yeah. Oh,
They cause it.
Naomi's saying maybe it was a tooth. Okay, something very small. Ugh. So
Just a
now
comment.
Reish Lakish is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. you got it.
Reish Lakish is gonna get sick. That's just what's gonna happen. They summon the sister of Rabbi Yochanan, who is also the wife of Reish Lakish, in case we forgot.
Yeah.
She comes to the study house with her young children in tow. Yeah, it is sort of flaunting
big.
to Rabbi Yochanan, right? There is a reason people commonly say that children take after their mother's brother. I've realized that in learning all of this story, Ruth Calderon is actually directly quoting many, many lines of Chazal, of the sages from different places in the Talmud. And it is said in the Talmud, so I struggled with this because how many texts am I going to bring? But maybe for next time, I'll bring a few of them. It won't be such a long story next time. But I could show you the text. It says, if you want to know about the girl, look at her brother. Like when you're looking for the shidduch and you want to know how your children are going to be, look at her brother, because your children are going to be like her brother. That was the wisdom. If you have a son, he's going to take after the mother's brother. Now everyone's thinking of people they know. Is
Thinking
my
of my-
child like, and my kid is a girl, so does she take after the father's sister? Okay, so I don't know. They also say when you're marrying your wife, look at her mother, because then you'll see if she's
Yes.
going to age well.
Yeah.
Have you heard
Yes,
that?
yes.
But this is a way of diminishing women instead of men. You know,
Maybe,
If you want to
maybe.
know what their pedigree is, you have to
You look at the men that they're associated
Are they
with.
going to be a good student? You have to look at the brother.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
The children run to greet their uncle, but then they see the frightening expression on his face and stop short in their tracks. Brother, make your peace with them, his sister urges. She should have a hold on him because of this
Yeah.
history that they had together.
Mhm.
Rabbi Yochanan sees her face and hears her voice. He tries to remember how he feels about her, how he feels about anything. So he's totally dissociated, thank you, from who he was. He's really gone mad.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to show. That was the expression in the text. He's gone mad. His spirit is disturbed. Yochanan, she pleads. She's the only one who doesn't have to call him Rabbi. There's an intimacy there and knowing, right?
Yeah.
Yochanan, it's like the kids maybe had a nickname for him. Like she would be the only one who could still use it. Don't leave me alone. You married me off to him. Don't let him die because of your anger. I am too young to become a widow. I love him. You love him. Remember? And let your widows trust in me, quotes her brother like a total stranger. He's like a robot.
Yeah.
He looks briefly at his nephews, shifting his glance for just a moment. There is a flicker of life in his eyes, but his heart has already been closed off. He turns cold once again. Leave your orphans, I will sustain them, he quotes. If only God were more compassionate than you are, she whispers. She is no longer praying for her husband's health because she knows such a prayer would be in vain. When she leaves, she puts her scarf over her head like a widow. Right? If Rabbi Yochanan won't bring him back to life, then Reish Lakish is going to be gone. She already knows. They all know how the metaphysics work. A few days later, Reish Lakish dies. When the students come to mark the 30th day after his death, they find several pebbles on his grave left by unknown hands. Who are the unknown hands leaving pebbles? The same ones, the same ones who left the spices on the wedding night.
The robbers. the
Yeah,
thieves.
his old gang.
His
I thought maybe
lure.
Rabbi Yochanan.
Oh, I think not.
Okay.
I think it's
The
the
old gang.
unknown people.
Well,
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
but they're,
anonymous. It's not
Yes.
necessarily that they're unknown, it's that,
yeah, exactly.
so it leads.
And
to-
they're using the appropriate mourning ritual language.
Right.
They're coming, that's a sign of respect.
Yeah.
They're not leaving, flowers, that's a Christian thing. I don't know what would be the equivalent in the pagan robbers world. I don't know. but that they come and they do the right thing by their deceased leaders.
Supposed to put stones before 30 days?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Stones before 30 days. Yeah, that would be, I don't mean to poo-poo it. That's a little bit of our modern sensibilities, like don't put up, they wouldn't have a monument yet. So, but maybe they would be doing more immediately when you didn't have to go order it from Lieben Monuments or wherever to get etched in, right? They would come a couple days after the funeral and put a stone there and have somebody carve the name, So thank you, Terry. I didn't mean to poo-poo that comment. But it's
I just thought maybe they weren't Jewish who was putting the stones.
that's a really nice observation. They're doing it, but maybe they're doing it like too soon, like earlier than they would have otherwise.
Because they don't know
Before the
rules.
30 days of mourning were over. Actually, I like that.
Yeah.
Because they came to see the grave on the 30th day for the floshim. That's when official mourning time is over after 30 days. For the child, remember, for a child, they're mourning full year. But 30 days is anybody else who's a relative who thinks of 30 days. Even when Moses died, they mourned
Relatives,
for
but
30 days.
anybody else is allowed to go during.
Yeah. And I think it's just an expression that, when a leader dies, all the students are like, all of them are mourning. The whole community is mourning. Okay. I just lost my.
Here, the
okay.
inscription.
Yes, the inscription Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish is covered with a palm frond, and next to the stone, someone has written in resin and shaky letters,
His name,
Reish Lakish, his first name, his original name. Yeah, thank you. I wanted to finish that paragraph. Thank you. Okay. Through the windows of the study house, Rabbi Yochanan can be seen walking aimlessly in the fish market. Just realizing. Yeah, okay. His clothes ripped and his hair, which was once his glory, now disheveled. He cries, "Where are you, Ben Lakish? Where are you, Ben Lakish?" Yelling and tearing his cloak. Mothers forbid their children to trail him after him, to laugh and throw stones. So he's lost all respect.
It brings to mind King Lear.
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. The disgrace and the insanity.
The pathos of it, and it's also connected to children. And he goes mad. And it was vis-a-vis also children.
Yes, but King Lear, his sin was to give away his kingdom.
It's just an image.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not the okay, because in this case, Yochanan.
But the cloak, right? Doesn't he
No,
also
the
have
hair, the dishevelment,
the
the
dishevelment?
renting of his clothes.
Right.
This is all King Lear, going mad in the public places,
Yeah.
crying. It doesn't go further than that.
You know what? It's also King Saul in the
Yeah.
Bible, that he goes mad
Because of David.
because of David, because of jealousy. From this young upstart.
That's more like it.
Well, these are
The
all
public
script-
shame of a Torah scholar is, let's just finish the last two lines, is not easy for the sages of Tiberias to bear. They pray for Rabbi Yochanan to rest in peace for his sake and perhaps for their own.
It was also a cause of hubris.
Yeah.
It wasn't so
Yeah.
much giving away the kingdom, it was hubris
Yes.
that brought him down.
That's what
Just like the same thing here.
I was gonna say is severe narcissistic injury.
Mm.
He never recovered from being displaced, from being the top of the hierarchy in his own
Just
study.
double checking.
He was sent too much sorrow, he couldn't bear it.
That's it.
It's
I
quite
wanted to read
tragic.
something.
He brought it on.
Is this not a
He brought
tragic?
it.
It is tragic. I mean, but at the end of it, neither of them could survive without their friendship.
It's,
Reish Lakish dies and Rabbi Yochanan dies.
they sort of self-destruct.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Here, this is what I wanted to read. This is now Ruth's comment on it. The contradictory elements in the two men are complementary, but in Reish Lakish's total dedication to Rabbi Yochanan, he ends up negating himself and
He
sabotaging the encounter between them. If, in other words, Reish Lakish leaves himself behind, leaves his spear at the other side of the Jordan, and isn't allowed to be himself, gets totally dissociated from his body, from who he was. And if Reish Lakish had been able to go back and take his knife and enter into his new life armed with his trusty weapon, their encounter could have been more fruitful. If Rabbi Yochanan didn't think that Reish Lakish had to deny who he was in order to play at the game, then actually the two of them would have been on more equal
Yes.
footing and would have survived. The bandit could have settled down in a real home, and the scholar could have received a taste of reality. They had something to teach each other, but Rabbi Yochanan didn't want to learn. Instead, though, the two men held fast to a single foundation until it collapsed beneath both of them. The other side, this is why she calls the story the other side, the other side was forgotten. The balance was upset. The scholars became talking heads without bodies.
So is the deaths of his children, is that supposed to be seen as a punishment?
I was wondering.
I didn't read it as a punishment, but I read it as part of the tragedy. I think you could, does anyone read it that way? Zoom room, you should feel free to jump in also.
Well, it very often is when a child dies in our literature, you know.
Yeah, it would be understood. Yeah, yeah.
And
Annie?
That's.
I thought the depression were caused by the loss of his children, started the jealousy of looking at Reish Lakish's children, and then the jealousy expanded to the study hall. It's like his depression from his children drew the madness and expanded it. That's the idea I got, that it didn't start from the study.
Yeah, that he, because of his personal tragedy, he was so, well, he lost himself, and then it seeped into the rest of his work. Yes.
If you look at Reish Lakish as representing the life force, the vitality of the physical side of life, and him as looking as this etiolated sort of, you know, cut off from that life force, then you can see the death of his children as he wasn't able to pass on that vital spark of life.
Yeah, yeah.
And
He couldn't create life. And their souls were pure, but their bodies couldn't survive because he didn't have body, he had dissociated from body. Maybe. Yeah, Marilyn.
In a way, it addresses the mind-body dilemma,
Yeah.
saying that you need both.
Yeah.
You need them.
Yeah.
I remember learning about what historians of religion call the Axial Age. That's the time when Christianity emerged, Rabbinic Judaism emerged, many other religions and religious awakenings happened at a time around the year zero-ish, where there was a new awareness of body and soul, which was understood as one in past, you know, in pagan cultures or ancient cultures, it was the body, soul, or even as the Torah calls it, nefesh. Nefesh is the life breath and the soul. And so ancient Judaism didn't see this as two different things. Rabbinic Judaism, which enters the world of the mind and the world of scholarship, saw this as bifurcated. So it made perfect sense in ancient Judaism to bring sacrifices of animals as a spiritual endeavor. But once you get to Rabbinic Judaism in the 2nd, 3rd, 5th centuries and so on, you're really only in the mind of the word, in the world of the words, either study or prayer. You're dissociated from body. So it strikes me that this story really symbolizes that problem, the problem with that. I wanted to read to you also something that Ruth Calderon says about the sister who is kind of stuck between these two men, so to speak. In a classic dilemma that transcends cultural boundaries, a woman is torn between two types of men: the older brother figure who is sensible and reliable, and the wild, strange man whom she cannot possibly bring home to her parents. She says it's like Scarlett O'Hara.
Yeah.
In this case, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish in the Talmud are like Jacob and Esau in the Torah, the dichotomous image of the Jewish man, opposite poles, represent the tension that might exist even within the heart of an individual man, the body and the soul. That's what she's saying. She uses it as this girl kind of, this is the scholar she thought she would marry. This is the wild man she ended up being given. And then she can't survive the two of them. They can't survive either, but she's the victim of it. She's the widow, her children are the orphans.
Well, her brother didn't help.
The brother didn't help.
The brother didn't help.
No.
That's disappointing.
I have some like fantasy version of this where the robbers come back for him and they're
They
able,
save him.
yeah, but maybe not to take him away, but like maybe he says, come live in the city. And it's not all or nothing. Like you can also be part of our society. You can come visit and have lunch with us in the study hall sometimes in the Beit Midrash. But they're too bifurcated, these worlds.
I want to make a minor point. It's nothing to do with the value of the story. We talked about Aleph and Ayin. It's not just, this Ashkenazic Jews don't realize, Sephardic Jews, especially if you're walking around in Israel, Ayin is a guttural letter like Chet, and Chaf isn't. So you have a difference in sound. They do not sound the same. So
I thought about that, Sandra. I don't know why I thought about
in Arabic, if you know people are existing in time, it's very, so Ayin, you can hear Chet is the real guttural letter. Aleph is not, and neither a Chaf.
I don't know why I imagined it like as an Aleph or Ayin at the end of a word where it wouldn't matter. But of course, if you were pronouncing it like at the beginning or in the middle of a word, it would sound different. It would sound different. Thank you, Sandra. It's true.
Is there a way I can have access to, because I think I was in some medical appointments. I want to compare the story in our text versus the beginning of this story. Do you have a PDF file you can send to me of both?
Yeah. We can send it out. This file that I'm sharing. I don't think I can share it on the Zoom.
It's okay, but if you can send me the text in the original text and our text in terms of Talmud, and I'd like to compare it. But it's interesting that she really takes some of these points and stretches them beyond the way that our traditional texts would do. I mean, like she really stretches the point.
Yeah, she takes literary license. Yeah. She does. I think she's trying to make sure that it's anchored in the text. We could quibble with how much license she should be taking.
She's creative.
She's very creative.
It's creative writing.
Yeah. So
what
any
is
other
your
comments
biography?
before we
Biography?
of
Of
Ruth
the writer
Calderon?
of this, yes.
Yeah, so she is a
What does it say about?
Well, she's a doctorate in Talmud from Hebrew University. She was a member
doctor in what?
in Talmud, doctorate, PhD in Talmud.
Oh, no wonder.
Yeah, but also she was a member of Knesset. I mentioned this maybe at the beginning, but not everybody was here. She became, actually on the book, on her blurb, it says she became a national celebrity when she taught a page of Talmud in the Israeli parliament, arguing that the text was the heritage of the entire Jewish people. We were talking about her as a secular Jew. It's amazing. As a secular Israeli learning Talmud. And she founded all of these Elul Beit Midrash, Alma, Home for Hebrew Culture in Tel Aviv, places in Tel Aviv where usually Talmud never would permeate.
So what is her name?
Ruth Calderon. Here, you can.
Yeah, I want to.
So do you think?
So I was just saying, any final comment?
She was born in Israel.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. I think her father's Iraqi, or her mother's Iraqi. She introduced herself this way, but she is Israeli. Yes.
Maybe not a final comment, but I think the lesson I'm taking from this, or it just underscores what I already think, is that we need to have tolerance for different styles of interacting in this world. And I think so. Ruth Calderon is a beautiful example.
Yes.
Of that. But I think in the story, we often talk about the yeshiva they need a bigger taste of secular, and the
Mhm.
secular maybe need a bigger taste of study.
Mhm.
And so we need each other.
Yeah.
It's the complementarity of it.
It's very hard for one person to be both. I mean, this is
No,
why
but
modern
that's what-
Orthodoxy tries to, with a small sliver of Jewish life is modern Orthodox. Because to live in both the physical and secular world while also maintaining tradition and scholarship,
But unless you
it's
live,
holding a, it's,
Sports and
right,
unless you
it's
live
holding a
under a rock.
contradiction.
unless you.
But I was gonna say, but everyone has this tension on some level.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
But we-
they play ball in the yeshivas. Someone
I
was
know, but
saying
they
that
do.
last time.
They do
Carla was
play with
saying that.
people from Reish Lakish's team,
Yeah, right,
not just among
exactly.
themselves.
They'd
because-
be pulverized.
No, but and then if they went
can't even
on
hold their books.
Jeopardy and it was, the subject was Talmud, they would be pulverized. So, it's turnabout is fair play.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
I was thinking how much I adore the concept of Herzliya being
Uh-huh.
connected.
Ah, that's right, Jewish learning and
Have that
the mind and the
bridge,
body.
The transparent bridge.
That's
Oh, that's
lovely.
That's a good.
Very nice, nice
It's the
image.
Jacob Esau dilemma for
exactly.
me. It started there. The big move from like when parochial schools and a move to
Mhm.
the Selwyn houses, the LCC. We want the boys to be strong. It's a dilemma in
But
Israel.
let's
We wanna be
be clear, those places are very academic.
They-
and-
the-
Yes, they are.
They're academic,
they're
but
heady.
we wanted our boys to be the hunter too.
Yeah,
You can't
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
be, we want both.
yes.
You should
All
be.
of
you should be
well-rounded.
both. You should be.
It's
both.
So Rabbi
interesting.
Yochanan and Reish Lakish
It's
represent
interesting.
two poles,
Yeah.
two opposite poles, and we live in that tension.
But also the story makes it that you have to make a choice, all or none, for both sides, and that's a problem.
But that's the tragedy.
That's the
That's what
problem,
happened.
Because
What
Reish
happens is
Lakish
both will
gave
be
up
sacrificed.
holding on to his past.
Yeah, but I think, Gloria, the tragedy there is that also not only that they couldn't have the back and forth, but eventually Rabbi Yochanan doesn't refute the argument. There's a stop of the disputatio going on between them.
Right,
And I
right,
think
doesn't
that
even
was a
engage
really
anymore.
sad point that this,
Yeah.
so I agree with you that this is not being able to look at both sides in an argument. That
Yeah, thank you. Oh, my goodness. Right, that's the point where it all breaks down,
But it's also, I think, about judgment.
where you stay one-sided.
Yeah,
Mhm.
judgments we are making. And
Yeah.
what is the right sexuality? What is the right? Is
Yeah.
it better to be
Right,
in right person or
Uh-huh.
more physical? It's also, I mean, it's
Yeah.
the power that the
Mhm.
power
It's
games
the
that work
power.
behind these societal judgments.
The
Yeah.
politics
Yeah.
in Israel.
Yeah.
But our religion is very judgmental. You can't,
Talking
You
about
can't-
homo-
you can't-
homoerotic
Mhm.
relationship
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
Johann
yeah,
and.
yeah, there's something there that
There's a
was
homosexual-
sublimated, was hidden.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
well, you can't get away from that in Judaism, that it is a very judgmental religion.
It's judgmental, it's making judgments, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's a more judgmental
Yes.
religion than Judaism?
Yeah,
Could I
And-
make a comment?
But
I hear a comment in the Zoom room.
Yeah, there's also the concept in the Talmud or the Torah of shaming people. And when you embarrass a person in public, they say it's equivalent to killing them. So
Killing them.
here we have the two embarrassing each other in the study hall by their arguments are presented, but in a shaming way, not in a. like
And
a
then they
good
kill, and then
argument.
they both killed
And
one
then they
another.
kill one another. So that
Yeah.
concept is there's multiple concepts here.
Yes,
I think
thank you.
they're two
and-
sides of
yeah.
a self. I think they are meant to be, this is playing out as a single person divided in their self. This whole thing with
Mhm.
sharing the sister, the wife,
Oh,
on a more Freudian
on a
level.
symbolic level.
This is a
you're saying
divided
it's-
self.
Yeah,
And how the warring within, and one side, one can't.
is
live
it the
with-
id and the ego,
Yeah,
the,
something like that.
Yeah.
And then one can't live without the other. Like if one sickens, then.
right,
yeah.
Then the whole
right,
tree
it
dies.
it threatens the balance.
Yeah.
Woo,
It's great.
all of that
Great.
from
It's great.
this story. Amazing, amazing. Okay, so we're gonna stop here. I'm mindful of our time. Next week, we will meet a new cast of characters
All right.
and jump
Okay.
right in. And we're on for every Wednesday for the next number of weeks. There's a Wednesday I'm gonna miss in a few weeks. I'm away the first Wednesday in December, but I'll remind you of that. December 7th, I'm away, so I'll remind us the next few weeks.
Thank you very much.